Now I got the rotor all set to be sealed, and this is the metal-backed waterproof tape that I was talking about that I bought at Walmart. So what I've just done is taken an X-Acto knife and cut these sort of rectangular pieces. They could be smaller, they could be bigger, but whatever. And yeah, and I've already cleaned off around the hole here with lacquer thinner, so there's nothing that's going to interfere with the glue of this tape. And just gonna stick it over there, and then our rotor will be good to go. One thing that I didn't mention in the last video when I was talking about options for rotors, there are people out there who will rebuild a rotor, and you can buy rebuilt rotors. They'll actually open them up and go through look at the parts in there, make sure they're all spec, put it all back together again. Now, if you are inclined to do that, you can do it. You can find these people and have your rotor rebuilt or buy one they've rebuilt. The thing is, it's not cheap. So you're looking at over $100 to get a rebuilt rotor, to get your rotor rebuilt. So I am not doing these videos for millionaires and billionaires. I'm doing these videos not to make money, but just create a resource for people like me who just enjoy bringing these clocks back to life. So the cheaper options I mentioned in the last video, you check those out, decide which one you want to go with. So now my rotor's all set. I'm going to put that over in my shoebox, and now I'm going to pay attention to the coil. So here's the coil. This looks like the original cord right here. It looks like at some point somebody added new cord and used these caps to attach that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go up about an inch from the terminals and carefully cut the wire off. And I don't want to be rough because I don't want the terminals of the coil to move and risk them ripping away from the little wire in here that they're connected to. So once I've got it like this, what I will do next is I will write down the color and the number that's stamped on the coil. A lot of these are the same. I see the same numbers over and over again. This one is very common, the yellow 70. But I'm going to write this down so I don't forget that. I'm going to put yellow 70 back on there when I'm done with it. So my first step preparing this coil is going to be to remove the old wires, which means heating up the old solder and pulling these old wires off. Now, when I first started doing this, I really wasn't comfortable with the whole soldering thing. And so what I would do is I would leave a little bit of original wire on there, strip it, and then with caps, I would just attach new wire, which is something that you can do. What I'm doing here, I got comfortable with this process. It's not hard to do. I got this cheap solder gun made in China off of eBay. And so what I do is I always use new lamp wire, and I cut it and I strip a little bit off the end, and then I solder it onto here. I'm not a solder champion, but what I found is to do this job, you don't need to be. I also have a soldering iron, but I use the soldering gun because it's quicker. The soldering iron takes some time to warm up, and this is just almost instantaneous, gets hot. So for what I'm using it for, the solder gun works just fine. So now I have the coil all set here. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this paper with this special type of tape. Now, this tape, as far as I know, it's only made by Scotch, and it is supposed to be fireproof. So if there was a problem inside the coil wouldn't catch on fire is the idea. So I'm going to wrap this with this tape and try to bring it up a level as far as safety goes. This coil is in very good shape, and you don't have to do this, okay, especially if you have a coil that's in this shape. But sometimes you'll have a coil where the paper is literally falling off, okay, and that's something that I would definitely want to address before I put the clock back together again. Okay, but I wrap all of them just because I'm trying to create a clock that'll last another 60 years and be safe. And so this is expensive. I will tell you that one roll of this you can do a lot of coils with. But what I do is I put it down and stretch it out, I guess about 4.5 inches, and cut it off. And then I go back in with my X-Acto, and what I'm going to do is I'm not going to cut all the way across, but about 3/4 of the way, like that. And the reason I'm doing that is because the dimensions, the coil here, these terminals, I'm going to have to put that slit where the terminals are. So I do that just like that. And then I'm going to wrap the tape around the paper of the coil all the way around. And I'll probably have some left over that I'm going to have to trim off. So yeah, so I have, I don't know, about 1/2 inch or so that I need to trim off, and that's okay. And the next step for me is to do the same thing on the other side. And then what I'm going to have to do is put one in the middle. So the other side is exactly the same, about 4 inches or so for the H rotor. Put a little slice in there and then put it on so it goes around that terminal. The final one for the middle, I'm actually going to have to make 2 cuts so that I can get it in between the 2 terminals there. Not hard to do, but that's how I do it. So if you're working with another rotor, like the B rotor, it's bigger, the coil is bigger on the B coil rotor, yeah, you'll use more tape because you got a longer way to go. But on the H rotor, 4 inches is about what you need to do. So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a cut here, and then on the other side make a cut, and then just take it and put those 2 cuts in between the terminals like that. So that's going to wrap the coil up. Now, I don't think that anything else is actually necessary, but what I do anyway is after I have it wrapped, I go back with a product called liquid tape. Well, there's more than one brand. The liquid tape is one brand. Home Depot sells the same thing, but it's a different brand, but it's the same concept. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my hobby vise just for convenience. So this is a hobby vise. You can get these at like Harbor Freight and stuff, or off eBay. They're not too expensive. And I'm going to just put the coil in the hobby vise like this. And the only reason I'm doing this is to make it a little bit easier for me for the next step. And the next step is I'm going to take the liquid tape and I'm going to coat the glass tape with this liquid tape. And what's going on here, I don't think that there's any real functional reason to do this, but cosmetically it will appear more like the original coil with this. And it also gives me a base to write the number of the coil on there, the yellow 70. So when this dries, I'm going to put that yellow 70 on there. Sometimes it requires more than one coat. It depends on how well mixed up the liquid tape is. It looks like I'm going to give this one 2 coats. And this stuff, if it gets on the metal of the coil, it's no big deal. You can wipe it off when it's wet. And when it's dry, take like a wooden stick, like a toothpick, and you can just scrape it off very easily. But the trickiest part is getting around the terminals here without getting the liquid tape all over the terminals. But like I said, if that happens, it's not the end of the world, because you can just take a razor blade or an X-Acto knife and scrape it off easily once it's dried. All right, so I just have now the bottom side here to get. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this dry, and it dries pretty quickly, but I'll probably wait an hour or two, and then I'll come back and I'll put a second coat on, and then you won't see any of the white of the tape through the liquid tape. And after that second coat, I'll wait a couple hours at least, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these paint pens. So they sell these at Walmart and Hobby Lobby and Michael's and everything else, but you shake them up and it's real nice, and it's actually paint. And I'm just going to draw on the coil. Since it's a yellow 70, I'll use the yellow one and just gonna draw 7 and a 0. What do the numbers mean? What do the colors mean? I don't actually know, but somebody may know. And so I do that just so that down the road, if somebody is working with this clock, they know what they have, what they're dealing with, in case it does matter to them. So that's the coil, and next time we'll take a look at putting the movement back together that we now have cleaned.